Here we have another MacBook that doesn't work. This MacBook says it has no backlight, and like all the other MacBooks that were sent in by this other company, have been fucked with prior. And you can tell. There are several signs that IQ below room temperature has worked on this MacBook. Sign number 1 that IQ below room temperature has worked on this MacBook is the routing of this cable over here. Now, what way would you route this cable if it was you working on this MacBook and you had no prior experience? Would you route the cable on this MacBook so that the wire is directly touching the fan, so that if the fan were on, it would constantly rub against the cable? Or would you route this wire like so that not only does the wire not rub on the fan, but also covers up this little mess of wires over here and a screw hole? Which way would you route that wire if you were working on this machine? Because if you said you would route it this way, you're smarter than the average fucking repair shop that outsources a device to Rossman Repair. Get out! Now, let's get on and see what's wrong with this. So they say no backlight. So I can see that there's already a little bit of fuckery right by the backlight circuit. And I'm afraid of this fuckery, because at this point, I realize that someone with the IQ of a bottle of kombucha has worked on this MacBook. Now, if we take a look, there's some fluxing, but nothing too terrible. We don't have anything here that seems like it's unfixable, and we don't really have a lot of sign of water damage. So the first thing I'm interested in seeing is, does this have a backlight on the screen simply because I didn't plug the cable in like a dumbass? That would actually be a pretty nice fix. I am so sick and tired of stores sending me this shit. Keep in mind, again, if you're an end user, if you're a customer, if you are a person who's just opening up for this stuff for the first time, and you do this shit, no big problem. You don't know any better. Just no skin off our back. Here, we'll change the cable around, we'll close the machine up, we'll blow out the dust, we'll replace the thermal paste, and we'll charge you nothing. Seriously. If you're a store and you do this shit to your customers' devices, if you're a store and your customer now has to wait 1 to 2 weeks more to get their shit back because you're an idiot, I'm fucking billing you for that. Fuck that. Now, let's see what happens when we turn this on. So we're going to plug this in, and it's turning on. And if this thing gets backlight, I am billing these people full fucking price. Not kidding. Give me a question mark folder. Give me a reason. Okay, so it doesn't look like we have backlight. So the first thing we're going to do with Paul Daniels' software is check and see what it is we get on backlight output. Now we get 8 volts. 8 volts means that it's not boosting. So the reason I check the voltage at output instead of the voltage at the fuse is because I want to get as many answers as I can, as quickly as I can. So let's say I have voltage after the fuse. That still doesn't answer my question as to what could be wrong with the circuit. So let's just open up a schematic and a board view for an 820-00165, which is starting to get a little old in the teeth. Teeth? Why do you call it old in the tooth? Teeth are one of the few things that don't actually seem to be affected by the aging process very much. Gums, yes. Teeth, no. Silly expression. I'm going to just start changing everybody's expressions to what I think they should be. Like what PETA does. Don't grab a bull by the horns. Grab a rose by the thorns. Ugh. Sometimes I feel disgusted at the fact that I'm a vegan because organizations like PETA exist. I really do. I understand why people hate vegans. As a vegan, I understand why people hate them. I hate a lot of them too. I shouldn't say hate, intensely dislike. My first real boss at a Real Manhattan studio said, "Lois, you hate nothing. You intensely dislike it." He was missing all of his teeth too because of gums, bad gums. The fact that he was over 80 and he had this southern accent. "Lois, you hate nothing. You intentionally dislike it." I got to get him on for an interview someday. Anyway, so let's check out the PDF. And so let me just explain to you why it is that I measure output rather than measuring something like the fuse. Because most people, they would measure the backlight fuse. I measure output. I measure output because it tells me multiple things. So if output is 0 volts, either fuse is blown or transistor is not opening over here. That's supposed to be opening and letting backlight voltage through. And in really, really rare cases, a bad coil. Actually, not even that. A bad coil, you get 0.6 volts. Bad coil, because of it's cracked or broken internally, would mean 0.6 volts in backlight output. 8 volts on backlight output means voltage is going through, but no boosting. 8 volts of backlight output means the diode is good, the coil is good, the transistor is opening, and the fuse is good. So I've answered multiple questions there. Now, if I'm getting 18 to 19 volts on backlight output, This is boosting. This is being told to turn on. It's enabling. This fuse is good. This transistor is good. The coil is good. The diode is good. The capacitors are not shorted to ground. But the backlight brightness is low because the PWM is missing or not the value it's supposed to be. And if I'm getting like 35 to 50 volts over here on an Air or 52 to 70 volts on any of the other machines, that means that the backlight is being created. It's simply not making its way to the screen because there's no load, because either the LCD cable is bad or the screen is bad or something like that. So the reason that I check the voltage at output rather than checking the fuse is because the different results I could get at output tell me different things. So if I measure the voltage at output and I get 8, now I have an answer to multiple questions. And when I'm doing this work off of camera, when I'm not in front of the camera and explaining things for YouTube, I am working at a much faster pace than this because, I mean, you saw the amount of stuff in my store and there's a lot that comes in. And the only way I'm going to get that done is by running a Ponzi scheme on my time. And the way I run a Ponzi scheme on my time is by using these little time-saving tricks. So if I have 8 volts at output, I don't need to see if the coil is good. I don't need to see if this transistor is opening or if these two transistors are doing what they're supposed to or if these two signals are here or if this fuse is working because I've answered multiple questions. And as you move on, as you become more specialized in working on specific circuits, each time you should not just be looking to learn more, you should also become proficient with how you can save time in your troubleshooting by figuring out what you could measure that will give you the maximum amount of information in the least amount of time. So when I measure and I get 8 volts at output, not only do I know that my fuse is good, but I also know that EDP backlight enable and backlight platform reset are present, which is going to short these two transistors to ground, which is going to allow the gate of this transistor to get shorted to ground, which is going to allow this P-channel MOSFET to open. I also know that the coil is good. I know that the diode is good. And I know that there's no short to ground on output because if there was a short to ground on output, I would be getting 0 volts instead of 8. So that one decision to measure at the output rather than measuring the fuse at the beginning has immediately saved me from having to make 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 or 6 other measurements. It's beautiful. I don't have to make a resistance measurement at ground. I got that already. Now, the next thing we need to do is see if backlight is being enabled. So backlight is either not being enabled because backlight enable is not present. Remember, this chip has to be told to turn on. It's not just going to automatically turn on. Don't go replacing chips now if they're not being told to turn on. You don't replace light bulbs before checking if the switch is present, right? If you're not going to replace a light bulb if the switch is in the off position, then you're not going to replace a chip if it's not being told to turn on. So we need to check and see if this is being told to turn on, if it has backlight enable voltage. Now, if it does have backlight enable voltage, we got 2 potential things that are keeping us from boosting. Door number 1, chip is bad. Door number 2, feedback is missing. So this chip is going to want to see what it is that it's doing. So this chip is going vroom, vroom, just like me on my Bafang that goes 19.9999999999999 miles per hour as per Mayor de Blasio's laws. My machine over here is going to go vroom, and it's trying to go to 19.9999999999999 volts from the 8 volts that's present on input. So this PP-G3 hot over here, that's an 8 volt input, and it's trying to go to a higher voltage. Now, if it's not making enough voltage, it's going to go vroom and go even faster. If it sees that it's making too much voltage, it's going to let off the throttle a little bit and, stop switching as fast because the backlight boost is happening here as it is switching. When it switches the voltage over here to ground that's in front of the coil, it makes the coil really mad, like when Jessa's mad in a video. And when the coil gets as mad as Jessa, then it starts to shoot out more backlight voltage. That's how it works. Ask your physics professor. So this is going to do more or less boosting depending on what it sees at feedback. Now, what are you going to do if I'm riding my Bafang and I can't see where I'm going and somebody just does this to me? If they do that, if they throw something in front of my eyes, I'm immediately going to hit the brakes because I don't want to ride my bike at 19.9999999999999 miles per hour if I can't see where I'm going. So if the feedback is not present, it will stop boosting because it does not want to wind up creating, 100 volts or 200 volts or 4,000 volts or 9,000 volts and turn itself into a fucking execution or tennis racket that I intend to use on my employees. It's going to be fun. You want to touch my cat, Anel? You want to make little stickers on my desk about checking my cat? We're going to change this because you touched this when it was 1,500. Wait till you touch this when it's 600,000. Oh, the voltage. We'll save that for when I get back from vacation. But I digress. What we need to do now is check those 2 things and see if they're present. So we are going to check backlight enable, which is present on the other side of the board. backlight enable, and we're going to check and see what our feedback ball looks like on the bottom of the chip. Now, this is Paul Daniels' software. Paul Daniels' software is so amazing that when I right-click backlight enable, it immediately shows me where it's present on the other side of the board. If you want to donate to Paul Daniels, because Paul Daniels' software has made your life easier, check out pldaniels.com. If you want to purchase Paul Daniels' software, because it makes your life, you want your life to be made easier the same way that it's made my life easier, check out pldaniels.com. If you don't want to pay for it, you said, screw that, I'm not paying for this, and I'm going to use Landrex because it's already free or whatever, well, you don't even have to do that, because Paul Daniels has released a version of the software with 99% of the improvements simply lacking that right-click functionality between the PDF and the board view. It's called Open Board View. It's available for free at pldaniels.com. And if you need a repair, or any type of data recovery, an iPhone repair, a MacBook repair, or anything else, and you're located in Australia, go to pldaniels.com. He'll fix it for you. Paul Daniels. Now, we're going to take this MacBook apart. Are you going to fix it in 3 minutes? I'm going to try, my friend. I'm going to try. Because I have to get my workout in the park in. And the park closes at 1. But I have to get a phone call in before I get my workout in the park in. And I also got to get some food in before I get my phone call in, before I get my workout in the park in, because they close at 1. Today I'm supposed to do 18, 16, 15, 14, 13 pull-ups, and then 16, 15, 14, 13 dips. That's going to be painful. It's ascending every day. My trainer is a fucking madman. But he is a good madman. Okay. This board is a mess of flux. Oh no. You've done something to it. What have you done to it? Paul, do you still love Air No Backlight? Do you still love Air No Backlight? Do you, Paul? Do you want this one? Oh no, Dum-Dum, what did you do, Dum-Dum? What did you do? Why are all these joints fucked with? What is this? What did you do to this little MacBook? I peas the ets. Let's get the camera in focus. Can't have this looking like a Jessa stream. Learn to solder, numbnuts. Oh, man. It's bad when people solder worse than me. Because you watch my videos. You see how bad I am at soldering. I suck. Also, these caps are corroded. Why are these still on the board? Why are you leaving corroded capacitors on your customer's motherboard? What the fuck? No. No, we're not leaving this here so that it could short down the line. And then they come back for warranty saying it's doing the same thing it did before. Screw that. No. Don't be lazy. Replace the shit. Replace the junk. Come on. Jesus. They just took a soldering iron and said, I see corrosion, I touch with iron. Blah. Customer deserves better than that. I want to mail this back to the customer directly. I don't trust them. I don't trust them to even get the damn billing right. Again, to be clear, I don't care if you do this stuff on your own and you mess up. I'm working on my own bike, and I'm every now and then messing things up as I go because I'm no bike mechanic. I'm actually pretty bad when it comes to anything mechanical, which is one of the main reasons that I only work on my bike and not bikes that belong to other people. One of the reasons I don't offer, e-bike buffeting repair service, because, I just replaced my own tire for the first time just 2 weeks ago. So, since I'm not good at it, I'm not going to do that for other people. And one of the reasons that I really harp on this point every time I see it is because one of the primary excuses used by people who say that you can only have authorized repair is that if you don't limit it so that only authorized people can do repair, that you will have low quality. And one of the things that bothers me when it comes to other movements that are pushing for change or progress in the world is that they don't call out individuals within their own movements when they do something bad. It gets buried, and I don't like that very much. I think if you're going to have a certain standard, that you need to have that same standard for your own side that you would have for the other one. So I am pro-independent repair, but unlike some that are very ideologically pro-independent repair and will never extol the virtues of a first-party place or never point out what's wrong within their own industry, I will happily, heavily criticize and harp on people that do things like solder BGA chips that don't even have balls on them to customer devices, because this is fucked up. So, look, there's no balls on this. That chip there's no balls on it. How do we expect this to work? So let's take a look at the donor board. This is this is a donor board. This is an effing donor board, and it's in better condition than the board that somebody tried to fix. Like, what is this shit? Look at this. No balls. No balls. No balls. This is rubbish. Trash. Look at this. This one over here has 0 balls. This one over here, this is a donor board. And what do you see there? Balls. Big, meaty, spicy balls. Like the ones that Chef was talking about in the episode where they were making fun of Isaac Hayes' quitting because they were insulting Scientology. I actually thought that was a fucked up episode because they were touching on they were making fun of the concept of pedophilia within Scientology, but the thing is, there is an element to that that is... What's the word I can use without getting sued? Let's say they're not far off from the truth there, and I wish they had kind of continued pursuing it. But anyway, let's replace that chip and have it actually have balls on it this time and see if we get a backlight. This is something that I'm very used to when it comes to the very hyper-partisan politics of today. When you turn on the television, you're never actually watching news anymore. You're watching the WWF versus WCW. Everybody has a narrative, everybody has an agenda, everybody has a side. There's no such thing as nonpartisan. And the thing is, I don't even necessarily mind that so much. I don't mind it so much as long as you're okay with calling out the garbage on your side of the aisle. I am for independent repair. I'm for, I'm for being able to have access to, parts, schematics, guides, being able to buy stuff. I'm for giving a big fat middle finger to people like Lisa Jackson when they make the implications that there are all these safety concerns if these mere plebs touch our products. But I can't really give the middle finger there I can't give the middle finger there in good conscience and in good faith if I'm not also giving the middle finger to jackasses in my industry that do shit like this. So whereas some people think you're just harping for the sake of harping or complaining and, bitching about what somebody else did and crying for no reason, not really. I have the standard of the people who are on my side that I do of the other side. And at the very least, in my own teeny tiny corner of the world, my pathetic little MacBook repair office that smells like sewage because the landlord still hasn't come to fix the plumbing issues in the basement, I'd like to live my values. And maybe someday I'll live in a world where the other individuals live theirs. Okay, so what's the orientation of this? I actually can't see it anymore. This way. Thank you very much. What degeneracy is this? Balls and boards. Yes, well, it's not that the balls are what make this degeneracy. It's when the chip has no balls that it's degeneracy. And to be clear, when I'm talking about this stuff, my standards aren't really that high. I don't have steady hands. I solder like a nincompoop. I don't have steady hands. I don't have any sort of real engineering knowledge. If you think I do, have a conversation with me and you'll be disappointed. Just a normal dude that barely passed high school, that cheated on his chemistry regions, and dropped out of college. So if I can have the standard for myself, then I don't feel bad having it for others. Alright, so now we've got a new LED driver on there with balls. Now I'm just going to go around this board and try to remove any pieces of idiocy that I see. Because I'm sure there's going to be a lot more. Yep. Looks like we're just about good. Okay, that little resistor in there could use a little bit of touch-up. But it doesn't look like a bad one. It's also not something that has a direct... it's going to short anything that grounds in a bad, violent way, so... I can do this. Now, it seems like that has been soldered before because the capacitor seems to be coming up from the board a little bit. So we are going to try and flow that back into place properly. Lewis's standard. If I can have balls, so can you. That's not my standard because I'm sure that would get me... Yeah, that's a bad... That's going to get me in trouble. .21 volts. 25. So we should be seeing a backlight soon. And we should also, with that backlight, be seeing a question mark folder on the screen momentarily. So just give it a moment, and we will have a backlight on the screen. There's this one line in the show The Honeymooners. Honeymooners is one of my favorite shows of all time on television. And there's this one line I remember when Ralph got laid off. Cramden was a bus driver. He was played by Jackie Gleason. And he was talking about the fact that he got laid off. And he said something like aggravation. 101 aggravations every day.
Driving a bus in the summertime, dying from the heat. In the wintertime, freezing from the cold. All kinds of weather. Through the rain, the snow, and the sleet. You know that sign they have in the post office? The mail gets through no matter what kind of weather? You know why? Because the mailman rides with me.
My store, as you saw in the store tour, may look a little rough around the edges. We, as people, may be a little rough around the edges. But at the end of the day, after you've given your MacBook to that franchise, after you've given your MacBook or your phone for data recovery to that beautiful, pretty, fancy-schmancy looking franchise, at the end of the day, do you know why it probably works? Because they sent it here. Because they sent it here. Or they watched a video that Jess or I made. When you go to a repair shop, one of the things that you should look for, do they actually fix anything? Or do they just look like a fancy mailing depot where your device is going to be put in a box where they send it off to somebody who actually does the work? Because if that's the case, I would highly suggest that you run and find someone that actually fixes shit. Find the Chris Longs, find the Tim Hermans, find the Michael Oberdicks, find the Jessa Joneses, find the Mark Schaefers. Find the people who are actually going to do the job. Bypass the middleman. There are a lot of places that you can walk into where it looks nice and pretty and sexy, and they have their nice little square POS system and their iPad for checking and blah-de-blah-de-blah. But when it comes time to actually make something work again, they're going to do to your computer what they did to this one. I'm going to start shamelessly shilling myself way more than I have in the past. Fuck these people. Send your computer here. SendYourMacBook.com. Do you want your computer to be treated properly the first time? SendYourMacBook.com. Don't delay. Make sure Lewis can fund newer vacations today. Speaking of vacations, this is going to be my last repair before I go on a nice, long, extended, well-needed, 5,000 miles that way vacation. And if you're the place that sent this in, on behalf of your customer, who's now waiting an additional week to get his machine back, on behalf of your customer, that's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something.